Hello there, and welcome back to Bedtime Science. I am really glad you are here tonight. At this moment, a voice is reaching you through the air or through a small speaker. Pressure waves touch the eardrum. Tiny bones move. Fluid shifts inside the inner ear. Hair cells bend, electrical signals travel, and networks of neurons begin to recognize rhythm, language, and meaning. All of that can be described from the outside. But there is also the inside. The words do not merely enter a nervous system. They appear within experience. There is a sound, a sense of distance, perhaps an image suggested by a sentence, perhaps the quiet knowledge that you are the one listening. The room is not only being measured by eyes, skin, and ears. It is present to someone. That someone feels continuous. You may have changed greatly since childhood, yet the person remembering childhood seems connected to the person here tonight. Thoughts come and go, but they appear to come to one point of view. The body has many organs and the brain has billions of cells, but experience arrives as one field. This room, this moment, this self. Why? Science can follow sound into the ear and activity into the brain. It can measure wakefulness, attention, memory, and report. It can watch consciousness fade under anesthesia and return after sleep. It can study people whose eyes are open but whose awareness is uncertain, and people who are fully conscious but unable to move. It can alter the sense of body ownership with a rubber hand, divide communication between the cerebral hemispheres, and speak in real time with a few dreamers while they remain asleep. Yet the central fact remains difficult to explain. Why should any physical activity feel like something from within? Why does red look like red? Why does pain hurt? Why does a remembered face carry familiarity rather than existing as silent data? Why is the processing of this voice illuminated by experience instead of occurring in complete inner darkness? Tonight, we are not going to solve that mystery by pretending it is simpler than it is. Instead, we will move through the evidence slowly. We will begin in a 19th century operating theater where doctors learned that consciousness could disappear while the body remained alive. We will follow patients who could see without knowing that they could see, hands that briefly felt as though they belonged to someone else, and brains whose two halves could no longer share everything they knew. We will enter dreams, anesthesia, meditation, severe brain injury, animal minds, and the uncertain question of artificial consciousness. Along the way, several theories will offer different answers. One says conscious information becomes available when it is broadcast widely through the brain. Another emphasizes recurrent activity within sensory regions. Another argues that a mental state becomes conscious only when the brain represents itself as having that state. Another begins from the structure of experience and asks what kind of physical system could possess a unified inner cause and effect organization. No theory has won. In 2025, a large adversarial collaboration tested important predictions from two leading theories using brain imaging and intracranial recordings. The results supported parts of both, while challenging key claims of both. That outcome may sound unsatisfying, but it is also a sign of a science becoming more honest. Theories were asked to risk being wrong in the same experiment. The mystery remained, but it became more precise. Before theories, there is the simple fact that consciousness is not always present in the same form. On October 16, 1846, people gathered in the surgical amphitheater of Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. The room would later be remembered as the Ether Dome. Surgery before reliable anesthesia was swift because it had to be. Patients could be restrained, given alcohol or opium, or rendered partly insensible by other means. But pain and terror remained central facts of the operating room. That morning, a dentist named William Morton administered ether to a young man named Gilbert Abbott. Surgeon John Collins Warren removed a growth from Abbott's neck. When the operation ended, Abbott reportedly indicated that he had felt something like scratching rather than the agony expected from surgery. The demonstration did not invent anesthesia in one instant, and ether had been used before in other settings. But the event became a symbol of a profound medical transition. A chemical could temporarily remove ordinary awareness while respiration, circulation, and much of the body's internal work continued. The person could be present as a living organism and absent as a conscious witness. Modern anesthesia is more controlled and much better understood, though not reduced to one simple mechanism. Different anesthetic drugs act on different molecular targets. Some strengthen inhibitory signaling. Some weaken excitatory communication. Some alter thalamic activity, cortical connectivity, or the ability of distant brain regions to coordinate. Anesthesia is not one state produced by one switch. The important change is often not that every neuron stops working. The brain may still respond locally to sound. Early sensory regions may register a tone or a word. The spinal cord can produce reflexes. The autonomic nervous system continues regulating the body, but the patterns associated with flexible, integrated, reportable experience become disrupted. A city can contain illuminated buildings while its communication network has failed. This distinction helped scientists separate two broad dimensions of consciousness. One is level, coma, deep anesthesia, dreamless sleep, drowsiness, ordinary waking, intense alertness. The other is content, the particular sound, image, thought, pain, memory, or sense of self present within a conscious state. A person can have a high level of wakefulness with little meaningful awareness, as may occur in some disorders of consciousness. A sleeping person can be unresponsive to the room, yet have vivid dream content. A patient in locked-in syndrome can be fully aware while almost entirely unable to move. Wakefulness is not identical to awareness. Responsiveness is not identical to experience. This is why consciousness cannot be located by simply asking whether the eyes are open. The systems supporting wakefulness extend deep into the brainstem and diencephalon. Networks involving the reticular formation, hypothalamus, thalamus, and basal forebrain help regulate arousal. Damage to particular regions can produce coma even when much of the cerebral cortex remains structurally present. The contents of experience depend heavily on cortical and thalamocortical activity. Vision, hearing, touch, body representation, language, memory, and emotion are distributed across many interacting regions. The cortex is not a flat screen where the world appears. It is an active network that continuously interprets signals, compares them with expectation, and influences what will be processed next. Consciousness, therefore, seems to require both a suitable level of arousal and a suitable organization of activity. A brightly lit theater is useless if no performance is occurring. A perfect performance cannot be seen if the theater has gone dark. Yet this metaphor is only a beginning. The brain has no little spectator sitting inside it, watching a neural stage. If such a spectator existed, scientists would then need to explain the consciousness of the spectator. The explanation would retreat forever. The brain must somehow be both the performance and the witnessing. One route into the problem is to examine how much the brain can do without consciousness. The answer is a great deal. Your pupils change size without conscious command. The brainstem adjusts breathing. The visual system detects edges, motion, color contrasts, and depth before any object is recognized deliberately. A familiar word can influence behavior even when presented too briefly or masked too strongly to be reported. The hand can begin shaping itself for the size of an object before the person consciously describes the object. Conscious experience feels rich, but most neural work remains outside it. Consider driving or walking along a familiar route. At first, every action may require attention. Later, much of the sequence becomes automatic. The body turns, balances, and responds while the conscious mind drifts toward another topic. The skill has not vanished. It has become less dependent on deliberate access. Expertise often moves work out of consciousness. A beginner at the piano thinks about each finger. An experienced player thinks about phrasing. A new driver thinks about pedals, mirrors, and steering. An experienced driver may arrive with only a thin memory of the ordinary turns. Consciousness seems less like the place where all processing happens and more like a limited arena in which certain information becomes available for flexible use. The strange condition called blind sight made this difference visible. Some patients with damage to the primary visual cortex deny seeing objects in part of the visual field. If a light appears there and they are asked what they see, they may say nothing. Yet if they are encouraged to guess whether the light was on the left or right, whether a line was horizontal or vertical, or whether a face showed fear, their answers can rise above chance. They do not experience ordinary sight, but some visual information still guides them. Signals can travel through pathways that bypass the damaged primary visual cortex, reaching structures involved in orienting, emotion, or action. The patient may turn toward a stimulus that is not consciously seen. The hand may avoid an obstacle that the person reports as absent. Blind sight does not prove that all unconscious vision is completely without experience. Patients differ, and some describe vague feelings or shadows. But it demonstrates that successful visual discrimination and normal visual awareness can separate. The ability to respond does not guarantee the familiar feeling of seeing. The reverse separation also occurs. A person can have a vivid visual experience that does not accurately reflect the outside world. Dreams create scenes without ordinary sensory input. Hallucinations can feel external. Visual illusions preserve their appearance even after their mechanism is understood. Knowing that two lines are equal does not always make them look equal. Conscious perception is therefore neither a simple copy of the world nor an optional decoration placed after perfect unconscious analysis. It is a constructed state with its own rules. Change blindness offers a gentle demonstration. In experiments, people view two images that alternate with a brief blank screen between them. A building may lose a window. A person may change clothing. An airplane engine may disappear. Large changes can remain unnoticed for surprisingly long periods because the visual system does not maintain a detailed picture of every element. In another classic kind of demonstration, a person asking a stranger for directions is briefly hidden by workers carrying a door or large object between them. During the interruption, the questioner is replaced by someone else. Many people continue the conversation without noticing. The world seems continuously detailed, but attention samples only part of it. This does not mean vision is poor. It means the brain uses the stability of the environment. There is little need to store a perfect internal photograph when the world itself can be consulted by moving the eyes. Consciousness presents a stable scene while detailed information is gathered as needed. The feeling of visual richness exceeds what is held in immediate access. Inattentional blindness reveals another limit. When people concentrate on counting passes in a ball game, some fail to notice an unexpected person in a gorilla costume crossing the scene. The image reaches the eyes. The visual system processes many features. But the unexpected event does not reliably enter awareness because attention is occupied elsewhere. Attention and consciousness are closely related, but they are not identical. Attention can select information for deeper processing. Conscious experience can sometimes include unattended background. Researchers continue debating how far the two can separate. The important point is that the brain does not simply open a window onto everything available. It negotiates. At any moment, countless signals compete. The pressure of clothing, distant traffic, the position of the tongue, the temperature of the hands, the meaning of a sentence, the memory it evokes, the faint urge to move. Most remain quiet. A few become central. Consciousness has a foreground and a background. Even the foreground can change while the stimulus remains fixed. In binocular rivalry, different images are shown to the two eyes. One eye may receive a face while the other receives a house. Instead of seeing a stable, transparent mixture, awareness often alternates. The face dominates, then fades as the house appears, then returns. The sensory input remains nearly constant. Conscious content changes. This allows researchers to compare brain activity when the physical stimulus is similar but the reported experience differs. Such experiments helped create the search for neural correlates of consciousness, the minimal neural events reliably associated with a particular experience. But the word minimal is difficult. If a participant presses a button to report seeing the face, brain activity reflects not only experience but also decision, attention, memory, and movement. A region may appear related to consciousness because it helps prepare the report. Researchers therefore developed no-report paradigms. Eye movements, pupil changes, or involuntary responses can sometimes indicate what is perceived without requiring a deliberate button press. These methods aim to separate consciousness from the actions used to reveal it. The effort has changed the map. Some signals once treated as direct markers of awareness may reflect later reporting or task demands. Posterior sensory regions appear especially important for the detailed content of experience, while frontal regions may contribute to access, control, metacognition, and report in ways that depend on the task. The argument remains active because the question itself contains layers. What produces an experience? What makes it available for reasoning? What allows the person to know that they are having it? What allows them to describe it? These may not be one event. The distinction becomes clearer with a familiar sensation, the feeling of pain. Pain begins with signals from receptors that respond to potentially damaging conditions. But pain is not a direct meter of tissue damage. It depends on context, expectation, attention, memory, threat, and the state of the nervous system. A serious wound may be barely noticed during danger. A healed injury may continue hurting because neural circuits have become sensitized. A placebo can reduce pain, not because the pain was unreal, but because expectation changes the processing of threat and relief. The conscious experience is constructed from evidence about the body and the situation. That word constructed does not mean invented without cause. A bridge is constructed, but it can carry weight. Perception is constructed, but it is constrained by signals, anatomy, learning, and the world. The brain has to infer what is happening from incomplete information. Light reaching the eyes does not arrive labeled as table, shadow, distance, or danger. Sound waves do not arrive labeled as voice, music, or wind. The nervous system must interpret patterns using context and prior knowledge. Some researchers describe perception as controlled inference. The brain generates predictions about the causes of sensory signals and updates them when the incoming evidence differs. Perception becomes a negotiation between expectation and error. This does not mean the brain simply imagines whatever it wants. Predictions that repeatedly fail are corrected. The world pushes back. A useful perception is one that guides the organism successfully, not one that reproduces every physical detail. Color is a beautiful example. Objects do not contain color in the form experienced by consciousness. They reflect, transmit, or emit different distributions of light. Cone cells respond to overlapping ranges of wavelength. Neural circuits compare those responses and interpret them in context. The same patch can look different depending on surrounding illumination. A white page remains approximately white in sunlight and indoor light, even though the spectrum reaching the eye changes. The brain estimates the lighting and preserves useful information about the surface. Color is real as experience and as a biological way of organizing light. though it is not a tiny coating of redness existing independently in the object exactly as it appears. Sound is similar. Air pressure fluctuates. The auditory system separates frequencies, detects timing differences between the ears, groups harmonics, and infers sources. A melody survives when played on different instruments because the brain recognizes relationships, not one fixed set of vibrations. Experience is full of qualities created through interpretation. This brings us closer to why you feel like you. Before there is a story, a name, or a remembered past, there is a body-centered point of view. The world appears from somewhere. Touch belongs to this skin. Movement seems initiated from here. Hunger, breath, heartbeat, and balance create an internal landscape. The self begins, at least partly, as the brain's best model of the living body it must control. The body model is usually so reliable that it disappears from notice. Close your eyes, and the hands do not vanish. Receptors in muscles, tendons, joints, skin, and the inner ear continue reporting position and movement. The brain combines those signals with remembered body shape and recent motor commands. It predicts where the limbs should be and compares prediction with feedback. This hidden estimate is called the body schema in some contexts. It is not a picture stored in one location. It is a changing pattern distributed across sensory and motor systems. The rubber hand illusion shows how negotiable that pattern can be. In the classic experiment, a person's real hand is hidden from view while a realistic rubber hand is placed in a plausible position. An experimenter strokes the hidden hand and the visible rubber hand in matching places at matching times. After a while, many participants begin to feel that the touch is occurring on the rubber hand. Some report that the artificial hand feels partly like their own. Asked to point toward the hidden real hand, they may misjudge its position in the direction of the rubber one. The brain knows, intellectually, that rubber is not flesh. But vision and touch agree so well that the body model adjusts. If the strokes are out of time, the illusion weakens. If the fake hand is placed in an anatomically impossible orientation, ownership is harder to establish. The brain is flexible, not arbitrary. It weighs different signals according to how likely they are to share one cause. The illusion reveals that body ownership is an active inference. The phrase "my hand" feels immediate, but the feeling depends on continuing agreement among vision, touch, proprioception, and action. Virtual reality can extend the effect to an entire body. When a person sees a virtual body from a first-person perspective and its movements match their own, the nervous system can partially incorporate it. A threat to the virtual body may produce a real defensive response. This is one reason digital worlds can feel spatially present. The brain does not require carbon-based skin in every detail. It requires a coherent sensor-motor relationship. The opposite problem occurs after amputation. Many people continue to feel a missing limb. The phantom may have a stable position, move voluntarily, itch, ache, or feel painfully clenched. The limb is absent from the body but remains within the nervous system's model. This does not make phantom pain imaginary. The pain is a real conscious experience generated by a system whose map has outlived the tissue it once represented. Neural circuits reorganize after injury. Signals from neighboring body regions can influence areas that once represented the missing limb. Motor commands may still be issued without receiving the expected sensory confirmation. Several mechanisms can contribute, and different patients have different experiences. Mirror therapy sometimes helps. A mirror is placed so the intact limb appears where the missing limb would be. When the person moves the intact limb while watching the reflection, the brain receives visual evidence that the phantom is opening or moving. For some patients, this reduces pain or releases a phantom from a clenched posture. A simple visual trick can alter a bodily experience that has persisted for years. The self is not stored entirely in the body and not stored entirely in the brain. It is maintained through a loop between them. Even the apparent location of the self can shift. Neurological disturbances near the temporoparietal junction have been associated with out-of-body experiences, in which a person feels located above or outside the physical body and may seem to view it from another position. Similar sensations can sometimes be induced experimentally by manipulating visual and tactile information in virtual environments. These experiences can feel completely convincing. They do not require a literal observer to leave the body. They suggest that first-person location is constructed by integrating visual perspective, touch, balance, and internal sensation. Usually the construction is stable enough that it feels like a fact of the universe. I am behind these eyes. When the signals conflict, the fact can move. The sense of agency is another part of selfhood. Agency is the feeling that I caused this movement or this event. Before a voluntary movement, motor systems prepare commands. A copy of the command can be used to predict the sensory result. When the actual feedback matches prediction, the movement feels self-generated. When it differs, the event may feel external or surprising. This helps explain why a person cannot tickle themselves as effectively as someone else can. The expected touch is partly canceled or dampened because the nervous system predicts it. The mechanism is useful far beyond tickling. It helps distinguish the consequences of one's own actions from events caused by the world. Disturbances in this comparison may contribute to unusual experiences in some neurological and psychiatric conditions, though no single simple mechanism explains every case. A thought or movement can feel alien when the system assigning authorship becomes unreliable. The ordinary self, therefore, contains at least several layers. There is the bodily self. This body is mine. There is the perspectival self. The world is experienced from here. There is the agentive self. I am causing this action. There is the affective self. This state feels good, bad, safe, urgent, calm, or threatening for me. There is the narrative self. I am the person with this name, history, character, and future. These layers usually cooperate so closely that they feel like one indivisible owner. But they can separate. Interoception helps create the bodily and affective layers. It is the brain's processing of signals from inside the body: heartbeat, breath, temperature, blood chemistry, gut stretch, inflammation, thirst, bladder fullness, and many subtler changes. Most interoceptive information never becomes a clear sensation. It contributes to mood, energy, arousal, and the background feeling of being alive. The brain does not merely receive these signals. It predicts and regulates them. Breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, and hormones are adjusted before danger or effort when possible. The organism maintains stability through anticipation. Some theorists propose that emotion is partly the brain's interpretation of bodily change within a situation. A racing heart can accompany fear, excitement, exercise, fever, or caffeine. The physical signal alone does not determine the conscious emotion. Context and prediction help assign meaning. This is why the same bodily arousal can feel thrilling on a safe ride and terrifying in a dark, unfamiliar street. The self is not a detached mind observing a body from above. It is a control model built around the needs of a vulnerable organism. Hunger matters because this body requires energy. Pain matters because this tissue may be threatened. Fear matters because this organism may need to escape. Pleasure matters because certain actions have historically supported survival, bonding, learning, or regulation. Consciousness is personal partly because biology is personal. A thermostat can register temperature, but it does not obviously feel cold. A nervous system represents temperature in relation to an organism whose survival depends on it. Whether this difference is enough to explain experience remains uncertain. but it helps explain why consciousness has a point of view. The narrative self appears later and works on a longer time scale. It is the self of remembered childhood, plans, relationships, achievements, regrets, and beliefs. It speaks in sentences. It explains why you did something. It imagines what kind of person you will become. Brain regions often grouped within the default mode network become active during autobiographical memory, imagination of the future, social reflection, and mind wandering. The name default mode once encouraged the mistaken idea that the brain is idle when not performing an external task. In reality, the network participates in rich internal work. When attention leaves the room, the narrative self often begins traveling. It rehearses conversations that have not occurred, revisits conversations that have, constructs motives, and links scattered events into a story. That story provides continuity, but it is not a perfect archive. Memory is reconstructive. When an event is first experienced, its features are processed across distributed brain systems. The hippocampus helps bind relations among people, places, time, and context. During later recall, parts of the pattern are reactivated. But retrieval is not the opening of an unchanged recording. The memory can be altered by new knowledge, current emotion, suggestion, and the act of remembering itself. A childhood scene may feel vivid while containing details added years later. Confidence is not a guarantee of accuracy. This does not make personal identity false. A bridge can remain the same bridge while its materials are repaired. A story can remain meaningful without preserving every sentence exactly. Continuity may depend less on perfect storage than on enough overlapping traces to connect one state of the person with another. The brain is also an explanation-making organ. The link between memory and identity became unusually clear in the life of a man known to science for decades only by the initials H. M. Henry Molaison had lived with severe epilepsy since childhood. By his 20s, seizures repeatedly interrupted his life despite the medicines available at the time. In 1953, when he was 27, neurosurgeon William Scoville attempted an operation intended to reduce them. Tissue was removed from both medial temporal lobes, including much of the hippocampal formation and nearby structures. The surgery helped control the most severe seizures. It also changed memory science forever. Henry could still speak, understand language, solve many problems, and hold a small amount of information in mind for a short time. If given a number and allowed to repeat it continuously, he could preserve it. Distract him, and the number disappeared. New conversations, new visitors, and new events usually failed to become lasting declarative memories. A researcher could leave the room, return after a delay, and need to introduce herself again. Henry did not wake each morning with no knowledge at all. He retained much of what he had learned long before the operation. His personality, social habits, vocabulary, and many older memories remained. Later research also showed that his memory was more nuanced than the phrase "unable to remember anything" suggests. He could sometimes acquire fragments of new factual knowledge and familiarity. But the ordinary ability to bind a new episode into a durable memory was profoundly impaired. Neuropsychologist Brenda Milner began studying him and discovered something even more surprising. She asked Henry to trace the outline of a star while looking at his hand only through a mirror. The task reverses ordinary visual guidance. Move the pencil in the direction that feels correct, and the reflected image sends it the wrong way. At first, people make many errors. Henry practiced over several days. His performance improved. The pencil stayed closer to the line. The movement became faster and more accurate. Yet when a new session began, he did not remember performing the task before. The skill had learned even when the narrator had not. This finding helped separate forms of memory that everyday language blends together. Declarative memory includes facts and events that can be consciously recalled and described. Procedural learning appears in skills, habits, and changes in performance. Henry's damaged medial temporal system was crucial for forming many new declarative memories, but motor learning could still be supported by other circuits. The brain does not contain one memory box. Different kinds of past are carried by partly different systems. The hippocampus helps bind elements of an episode and supports the formation of relational memories that can later be revisited. Skills depend heavily on networks involving motor regions, basal ganglia, and cerebellum. Emotional learning can involve the amygdala. Familiarity and semantic knowledge have their own overlapping foundations. A person can therefore remember without recollecting. Henry's hand could carry a history that his conscious story could not report. His case also changed the idea that the hippocampus stores every memory forever. Damage did not erase the whole earlier life. Instead, the medial temporal system appeared especially important for forming and stabilizing new memories so that distributed cortical networks could support them over longer periods. The details are more complex than one transfer from a temporary drawer to a permanent cabinet, but the central lesson remains. Remembering an event depends on a process, not one fixed location. For Henry, the present repeatedly failed to become an accessible past. This raises a difficult question about the self. If autobiographical continuity depends on memory, did Henry remain the same person? Those who worked with him did not describe an empty body. He had preferences, manners, emotions, abilities, and a recognizable character. He could enjoy a joke without later remembering it. He could become comfortable with a researcher through forms of familiarity, even while failing to identify the relationship explicitly. The continuity of the person survived through the same living body, older memories, habits, language, and patterns of response. But part of the narrative self had narrowed. Most people accumulate a life by carrying new days forward. Henry's life continued, but many of its episodes could not be gathered into the ordinary autobiographical sequence. The man aged while his conscious access to recent history remained fragile. He participated in research for more than half a century. After his death in 2008, his donated brain was preserved and mapped in extraordinary anatomical detail. The later examination refined the understanding of exactly which structures had been removed and which portions remained, reminding scientists that even the most famous case must be revised when better evidence arrives. Henry's contribution was inseparable from a personal loss he had not chosen. Modern accounts therefore try to remember him not merely as a damaged brain or a set of initials, but as a person whose cooperation transformed knowledge of memory. His life revealed that feeling like you does not depend on one perfect archive. The self is supported by several forms of continuity. Some can remain when another is broken. A skill can persist without recollection. Familiarity can grow without a remembered meeting. A personality can continue through a present that does not easily become yesterday. Memory connects the self, but memory is plural. When behavior occurs for reasons that are not consciously available, people often produce a plausible story. In studies of choice blindness, participants may select one face or product, but through a concealed switch they are shown the option they did not choose. Many fail to notice and calmly explain why they preferred the substituted choice. The explanation feels sincere because it is constructed from the current evidence. The conscious self is not always informed of the causes of its own decisions. It receives results and creates coherence. Neurologist Michael Gazzaniga used the word interpreter for a tendency especially associated with the language-dominant left hemisphere in split-brain research. The interpreter connects events into a narrative, sometimes inventing a reason when the true cause is inaccessible. The most famous path into this phenomenon began with surgery for severe epilepsy. The cerebral hemispheres are connected by a vast bundle of nerve fibers called the corpus callosum, along with smaller connections. In some patients whose seizures could not be controlled by other means, surgeons cut most or all of the corpus callosum to prevent electrical storms from spreading between hemispheres. The operation often reduced seizures without producing an obvious change in ordinary conversation. Patients walked, spoke, recognized family, and appeared to remain one person. But carefully designed experiments revealed a remarkable disconnection. Visual information from the left side of space is processed first by the right hemisphere. Information from the right side is processed first by the left. In most people, language production is strongly left lateralized. If a word or image was flashed briefly to the left visual field of a split-brain patient, the right hemisphere received it, but the speaking left hemisphere might not. Asked what had appeared, the patient could say nothing was seen. Yet the left hand, controlled primarily by the right hemisphere, might select the correct object. One hand knew what the speaking person denied knowing. In other experiments, different instructions or images could be given to the two hemispheres. The hands might begin competing. One selected an item while the other interfered. These findings inspired the dramatic claim that splitting the brain creates two independent conscious minds. The modern picture is more cautious. The disconnection is real and can be profound, especially under controlled conditions that prevent the eyes from moving and keep information within one visual field. But everyday behavior often remains surprisingly unified. Some information may cross through remaining fibers, subcortical pathways, shared sensory cues, or coordinated action. Different patients have different surgeries and different patterns. Recent reviews emphasize both division and residual unity. It is difficult to determine exactly how many conscious subjects are present because consciousness cannot be measured directly. The hemispheres can show separate access to information, but whether this always means two fully independent streams of experience is still debated. The split brain does not give one simple answer. It gives a boundary case. It shows that the unity of the self depends on communication. When information cannot cross, knowledge can become local. One part of the system can guide action without becoming available to the part that speaks. The person remains one body with one history, yet the usual integration has fractured. This suggests that unity may be an achievement rather than a starting substance. The intact brain contains specialized systems with partially different information. Vision does not process the same features as language. The left hand does not receive exactly the same input as the right. Emotional, sensory, motor, and autobiographical systems operate in parallel. You feel like one because these processes exchange information rapidly enough to support one coordinated model. The unity is real at the level of experience, but it may be made from multiplicity. A choir produces one chord without becoming one throat. The brain's interpreter adds another surprise. In one classic style of split-brain experiment, an instruction such as walk was shown to the right hemisphere. The patient stood and began walking. When the speaking left hemisphere was asked why, it lacked access to the instruction. Instead of saying that no reason was known, it might answer that it wanted a drink or needed to leave. The explanation was not necessarily a deliberate lie. The language system used available context to make sense of behavior. People with intact brains do this too, though the divisions are less dramatic. We often know what we decided before we know why. Reasons are partly discovered after action. This complicates the feeling of a central inner author. Conscious intention matters. Planning, reflection, and self-control can change behavior. But the narrator is not the sole origin of every event it describes. The self is more like a spokesperson for a coalition than a monarch issuing every command. This does not make responsibility meaningless. Social responsibility depends on capacities for understanding, prediction, inhibition, learning, and care, all of which can be real even if no single cell or mental point controls the whole brain. A corporation can make a decision, though no one molecule is the corporation. An orchestra can change tempo, though no one note contains the performance. Agency can belong to an organized person without requiring a tiny executive inside the skull. The question of free will often enters here. Experiments have detected patterns of neural activity before people report the conscious moment of deciding to move. These findings are sometimes presented as proof that free will is an illusion. The conclusion is too fast. The tasks are usually simple and arbitrary, such as flexing a finger whenever one feels the urge. The timing of intention reports is difficult to measure. Some predictive signals may reflect preparation, fluctuation, or a bias toward action rather than a completed decision. Complex choices involving reasons, future consequences, and self-control are not equivalent to an unplanned wrist movement. What the experiments do show is that conscious intention emerges from processes already unfolding. There is no clean border at which a non-physical self enters the brain and begins a decision. On this physicalist reading, the person is the unfolding process. A decision can be caused by the brain and still be caused by you, if you are not something separate from the brain and body. This returns us to the title of tonight's journey. Why do you feel like you? Part of the answer is that the nervous system builds a model centered on one body. It binds sensation to a point of view, compares action with feedback, preserves memory, predicts consequences, and explains behavior through narrative. These processes produce continuity and ownership. But explaining the architecture of selfhood does not yet explain why the architecture is felt. A robot might maintain a body model, store a history, predict its own movement, and use the word I. Would there be someone inside? The question remains open because function and experience are related, but their relationship is exactly what consciousness science is trying to understand. The next place to look is the nightly state in which the outside world fades, the body lies still, and an entire experienced reality can appear without it. The next place is dreaming. Dreaming is one of the clearest reminders that consciousness and accurate perception are not the same thing. During a dream, a world can appear. There may be rooms, voices, bodies, distances, weather, danger, and memory. The dream self often accepts impossible transitions without surprise. A house becomes a school. A person changes identity. Gravity weakens. Years pass within a scene that occupied only minutes of sleep. The brain is not receiving the ordinary stream of visual information from open eyes, yet vision appears. The body is not walking through a city, yet movement is felt. A conversation can be heard without sound waves entering from the room. Consciousness can generate a convincing environment from internal activity. Most vivid dreaming occurs during rapid eye movement sleep, though dreams can also occur in non-REM sleep. During REM, the brain is highly active. The eyes move beneath the lids. Breathing and heart rate may become irregular. Most skeletal muscles are strongly inhibited, reducing the chance that dream actions will be performed by the sleeping body. The inhibition is not always complete. Small twitches, eye movements, facial changes, and breathing remain. In our REM sleep behavior disorder, the usual muscle inhibition is impaired and dream-related movement can emerge. The condition has medical importance because it can precede certain neurodegenerative diseases, though not everyone who moves in sleep has this disorder. Dreams show that conscious content can survive while responsiveness to the environment is greatly reduced. They also complicate the phrase unconscious sleep. A sleeping person may be unresponsive, yet subjectively immersed in experience. Waking report is imperfect because dreams are quickly forgotten, but reports gathered after carefully timed awakenings reveal a range from no remembered content to simple thought like fragments to elaborate sensory worlds. The border between consciousness and unconsciousness is therefore not identical to the border between waking and sleeping. Slow-wave sleep often contains less vivid experience, but it is not guaranteed to be empty. Some awakenings from deep sleep produce reports of images, thoughts, bodily feelings, or a vague sense of presence. In other awakenings, nothing is recalled. Was there truly no experience, or was it simply not stored? The question is difficult because consciousness leaves evidence mainly through memory and behavior. If an experience vanishes without a trace, an outside observer cannot easily distinguish it from no experience at all. This is a recurring problem in consciousness research. The phenomenon is private, while science depends on public measurements. Researchers therefore build bridges, verbal reports, button presses, eye movements, physiological signals, brain activity, and later memory. Every bridge captures something and adds its own demands. Lucid dreaming provides a rare bridge from within the dream. A lucid dreamer recognizes that the current experience is a dream while remaining asleep. The dream may continue with greater reflection or control. The dreamer can sometimes remember a plan made before sleep and perform a prearranged sequence of eye movements. Because the eyes are among the few muscles that remain mobile during REM, their signals can be recorded in the laboratory. A dreamer can look left, right in the dream, and the sleeping eyes produce the agreed pattern on the recording. This allows a message to cross from dreamed experience into waking equipment. In 2021, researchers working independently in several laboratories reported two-way communication with some people during verified REM sleep. Experimenters asked simple questions through speech, flashing lights, or touch. A subset of dreamers correctly answered using eye movements or facial muscle signals. One sleeping participant could receive a basic arithmetic problem and signal the result. Success was not constant. Many questions received no answer. Answers could be wrong, and lucid dreaming itself was uncommon. But the experiments showed that the sleeping brain is not always sealed from the room. External information can enter a dream, be interpreted, and receive a deliberate response without full awakening. The finding creates an unusual image. A person dreaming behind closed eyes while a scientist waits beside the bed for a coded movement. Consciousness can be isolated, but not always unreachable. Dreams also reveal how the sense of self can change. The dreamer may be younger, older, bodiless, or another character. Memory can become unstable. The dream world may feel unquestionably real until waking rearranges it as imagination. This raises a quiet question. How does waking consciousness know that it is more accurate? Part of the answer is consistency. The waking world resists private expectation. It can be revisited, measured, and shared with others. Actions have stable consequences. Memory connects one day to the next more reliably than one dream connects to another. Waking experience is also a construction, but it is a construction tightly constrained by a common environment. Dreaming loosens the constraint. Some theories describe waking perception as a kind of controlled hallucination, with sensory evidence continually correcting the brain's predictions. Dreaming becomes perception in which internal models run with much less correction from the outside. The phrase is useful if handled carefully. Waking perception is not equivalent to pathology or fantasy. Its control by sensory input is exactly what makes it useful. The dream shows what the generative machinery can do when the doors are mostly closed. Sleep also changes the self in a simpler way. Consciousness seems to disappear between remembered dreams. A person turns off the light, then morning arrives. Several hours have passed, but subjectively there may be no interval. The clock continued, the body changed posture, the brain cycled through stages, and physiology remained active. Yet the person did not experience a long stretch of darkness. There was simply one moment, then another. An absence of experience has no felt duration. This is why dreamless sleep can feel instantaneous regardless of how long it lasted. Time is reconstructed from clocks, light, bodily state, and memory after waking. The nightly disappearance of self feels ordinary because it is repeated. Philosophically, it is remarkable. The narrative thread breaks, then resumes. You do not usually wake believing that the person who went to sleep has died and been replaced. The body, memory, and relationships preserve continuity. Identity survives a gap in awareness. Consciousness, therefore, does not need to remain continuously present for a person to remain the same person. This matters in anesthesia. General anesthesia is sometimes described as controlled sleep, but the states are not identical. Anesthetics produce distinct patterns depending on the drug and dose. They alter receptor activity, neural oscillations, thalamocortical communication, and the brain's capacity for complex interaction. The anesthetist monitors far more than unconsciousness. Breathing, oxygenation, blood pressure, heart rhythm, temperature, movement, and drug concentration all matter. Some agents reduce breathing or blood pressure. Muscles may be paralyzed independently of awareness, which is why movement alone cannot always reveal consciousness during surgery. Modern anesthesia is safe for most patients, but awareness under general anesthesia can rarely occur. The possibility is taken seriously because being unable to move while conscious would be profoundly distressing. The operating room, therefore, makes the measurement problem practical. How can one know that experience has vanished when the person cannot report? Brain monitors based on electrical activity can assist in some settings, but no simple number perfectly measures consciousness for every drug, patient, and situation. Anesthesiologists combine equipment, pharmacology, physiology, procedure, and clinical judgment. Consciousness has no single gauge on the body. Different anesthetics produce different subjective transitions. Propofol often creates rapid loss of responsiveness and later recovery with little memory of the interval. Ketamine can produce dissociation, vivid imagery, altered body ownership, and dreamlike experience even when the patient appears disconnected from the environment. Some drugs suppress experience more completely, others change its structure. A person can be disconnected but not empty. This distinction between connected consciousness and disconnected consciousness has become useful. In ordinary waking, experience is connected to the environment. In dreaming or some anesthetic states, experience may continue while connection and responsiveness are lost. A silent patient may still have an inner world. Nowhere is this possibility more ethically urgent than after severe brain injury. Older clinical labels included vegetative state, describing patients who showed cycles of eye-opening and sleep, but no reliable behavioral evidence of awareness. The term unresponsive wakefulness syndrome is also used because vegetative can sound dehumanizing and because the diagnosis describes observed behavior, not the final truth about experience. A minimally conscious state is diagnosed when inconsistent but reproducible signs of awareness appear. Following a command, tracking an object, reaching appropriately, or showing meaningful emotional response. Locked-in syndrome is different. Consciousness and cognition may be largely preserved while paralysis prevents ordinary movement and speech. Some patients retain vertical eye movement or blinking and can communicate through these small channels. The external appearance can be tragically misleading. In 2006, researchers reported the case of a young woman diagnosed as being in a vegetative state after a severe traffic accident. While she lay in a functional MRI scanner, she was asked to imagine playing tennis and then to imagine walking through the rooms of her home. The two tasks produced different patterns in healthy volunteers. Imagine tennis activates regions involved in movement preparation. Imagine navigation activates regions involved in spatial memory. The patient's brain produced the appropriate pattern for each instruction. She had understood the language, remembered the task, and intentionally changed her brain activity while showing no reliable behavioral command following at the bedside. The study did not prove that every unresponsive patient is aware. It revealed that some can be conscious without the motor pathway needed to demonstrate it. The condition became known as cognitive motor dissociation or covert consciousness. A large multi-center study published in 2024 examined patients with severe brain injury using task-based EEG or functional MRI. Among those who showed no observable response to commands at the bedside, roughly 1/4 displayed brain responses consistent with following commands. The figures should not be treated as a universal rate. Patient groups, injuries, timing, tests, and analysis differ. Some conscious patients may be missed because they cannot perform the demanding mental tasks. False signals must be controlled carefully. Still, the result changed the ethical landscape. When a person cannot answer, absence of behavior is not always evidence of absence within. Families often already behave as though the person may hear them. The science gives that instinct a cautious foundation. Speaking respectfully, explaining procedures, controlling pain, and preserving dignity matter even when awareness is uncertain. Researchers have also explored communication. If imagined tennis represents yes and imagined navigation represents no, a patient may answer a small number of questions through brain activity. The method is slow and demanding, but for someone with no other channel, one answer can be extraordinary. Consciousness becomes visible as a pattern on a screen. Command-following tests require attention, language comprehension, working memory, and the ability to sustain a mental image. Failure may mean unconsciousness, or it may mean that one of these other capacities is impaired. Scientists therefore need measures that do not require the patient to understand instructions. The Perturbational Complexity Index, or PCI, is one approach. A magnetic pulse briefly perturbs the cortex. EEG records how the activity spreads and changes. In a conscious brain, the response often travels through differentiated networks and forms a complex spatiotemporal pattern. In deep non-REM sleep or certain anesthetized states, the response may remain more local, simple, or stereotyped. The method is inspired by the idea that consciousness requires both integration and differentiation. The brain must function as a connected whole, but not as a whole in which every part does the same thing. A choir singing one identical note is integrated but not richly differentiated. Musicians playing unrelated songs are differentiated but not integrated. Conscious activity seems to require coordinated diversity. PCI compresses the evoked EEG pattern mathematically to estimate its complexity. Studies have found useful separation among many conscious and unconscious states, including some patients who cannot communicate. But PCI is not an oracle. Thresholds, injuries, medication, noise, and interpretation matter. It estimates the brain's capacity for complex responses. It does not reveal the particular content being experienced. It can suggest that the stage is capable of a performance without showing which play is occurring. The clinical search teaches several lessons. Consciousness is not the same as movement. It is not the same as eye-opening. It is not the same as memory afterward. It is not the same as language, though language gives humans an unusually rich way to report it. It may persist when nearly every familiar channel has failed. The lesson also points back toward healthy life. A person may be conscious of far more than they can express. Language compresses a field of color, emotion, body sensation, and meaning into a few words. Ask someone what they feel, and the answer may be fine, although the underlying experience contains countless shades. Reports are evidence, but consciousness is larger than report. This makes theory difficult. Scientists need observable predictions, yet the phenomenon includes a private quality that no instrument records directly. Theories therefore begin from different sides. Some begin with function. What makes information globally usable? Some begin with neural dynamics. What kind of activity distinguishes a conscious brain? Some begin with metacognition. What allows the system to know its own states? Some begin with phenomenology. What properties are undeniably present in experience, and what physical organization could account for them? Before meeting those theories, it helps to enter one more laboratory. Imagine a participant seated before a screen, waiting for an image that will appear for only a fraction of a second. The image may or may not cross the threshold into awareness. Researchers are about to ask what changes when the lights come on from within. In a visual masking experiment, an image appears briefly and is followed almost immediately by another pattern. The second pattern interferes with processing of the first. Adjust the timing carefully, and the same image may sometimes be reported and sometimes remain unseen. The photons reaching the eyes can be similar. Early visual activity can be similar. Later activity differs. When the image enters awareness, neural signals may become stronger, more sustained, and more widely distributed. The information can influence memory, verbal report, planning, and deliberate action. When it remains unconscious, processing may stay local and fade before achieving broader access. This kind of observation helped inspire global neuronal workspace theory. The basic metaphor begins with a theater. Many specialists work behind the scenes. One analyzes color, another sound, another language, another value, another motor plan. Most computations remain private. A small amount of information reaches a central stage and is broadcast to the whole audience of specialist systems. The brain has no literal stage and no central screen. The workspace is a distributed functional network. In the neuronal version, information becomes conscious when recurrent amplification allows it to ignite a widespread pattern involving sensory, parietal, and frontal regions. Once broadcast, the information becomes available to working memory, reasoning, report, and flexible control. The theory explains why consciousness has limited capacity. Many processes can run in parallel unconsciously, but only a few contents dominate global access at once. It also explains why conscious information can be used in many ways. A barely processed shape may guide a quick response without awareness. Once consciously seen as a face, it can evoke a name, alter emotion, guide speech, enter memory, and change a plan. Broadcast creates flexibility. The workspace idea can be illustrated by the smell of smoke. Early olfactory systems identify a pattern. If the signal is weak and irrelevant, it may fade. If it becomes globally available, the entire organism can reorganize. Attention turns, memory searches for a source, the body prepares to move, language warns another person, and plans are interrupted. A conscious content recruits the future. Global workspace theory has strong connections to access consciousness. Information that can be reported, remembered, reasoned about, and deliberately used. Critics ask whether access is the same as experience. Could a visual sensation occur in posterior sensory regions before it is broadcast? If so, global availability may explain what the person can do with an experience rather than why the experience exists. This question leads toward recurrent processing theories. The visual system contains many feed-forward and feedback connections. A signal travels from the retina through the thalamus into early visual cortex and onward toward regions processing shape, motion, objects, and meaning. But information also travels backward. Higher regions send signals to earlier ones. Nearby regions exchange activity in loops. Recurrent processing theories propose that a rapid feed-forward sweep can support unconscious discrimination, while conscious perception arises when activity becomes recurrent within and among sensory areas. On this view, experience may occur before information reaches frontal systems for report. A person might consciously see more than they can access or remember. This possibility connects to the feeling of a rich visual field. Perhaps the background is genuinely experienced in detail for a moment, even though only selected parts enter working memory. Or perhaps the sense of richness is itself an inference. Experiments have not ended the debate. Theories disagree partly because consciousness contains several questions hidden inside one word. Is a faint, unattended color conscious if it cannot be reported later? Does consciousness require the capacity to act on information, or only a particular sensory organization? Can experience exist without any awareness that one is experiencing? Higher-order theories focus on that last question. A first-order representation might encode a red shape. A higher-order representation represents the system as being in that first-order state. According to higher-order theories, the first state becomes conscious when it is represented in the appropriate higher-order way. The red signal is not enough. The system must, in some sense, register itself as seeing red. This need not involve a verbal thought saying "I see red." The higher-order representation can be nonverbal and automatic. It creates a distinction between processing a stimulus and being aware of processing it. Metacognition offers a partial window into this structure. Metacognition is the ability to evaluate one's own knowledge or performance. A person may answer a question and estimate confidence. The answer can be correct while confidence is low, or wrong while confidence is high. Confidence and perception are related but separable. Certain brain injuries can impair metacognition. A patient may perform a task without accurately judging performance. Other patients deny clear impairments, a condition called anosognosia. A paralyzed limb may be explained away as resting or belonging to someone else. The brain's model of its own state can fail. Higher-order theories give frontal regions an important role because prefrontal systems contribute to monitoring, confidence, and self-representation. But patients with substantial frontal damage can retain vivid experience, and no single frontal area has been established as the place where consciousness appears. Some versions of higher-order theory treat frontal activity as enabling awareness of sensory content rather than containing the content itself. The family of theories continues evolving. Predictive processing approaches begin from another broad principle. The brain is an inference machine trying to explain sensory signals and control a body. Perception reflects a hierarchy of predictions and prediction errors. Higher levels represent more abstract causes. Lower levels compare those predictions with incoming detail. Attention may adjust the weight or precision assigned to errors. Consciousness theories built around predictive processing differ from one another. Some emphasize the best current model of the world. Some emphasize the brain's predictions about its own body. Some connect selfhood to the regulation of internal physiology. The approach is powerful because it links perception, action, emotion, and the self. Yet prediction alone cannot be sufficient for consciousness. Many unconscious systems predict. A thermostat anticipates nothing in the rich biological sense, but machine learning systems can generate predictions without clear evidence of experience. A theory must say which kinds of predictive organization matter and why. Integrated information theory begins from experience itself. It asks what properties conscious experience appears to possess before asking how the brain creates them. Experience exists for itself. It is structured. It is specific rather than every possible experience. It is unified. The color, shape, and location of an object appear together. And it is definite. One experience excludes countless alternatives. IIT attempts to translate these phenomenological properties into requirements for a physical system's cause and effect structure. The system must have intrinsic causal power. Its current state must constrain its own possible past and future states. The whole must be irreducible to independent parts. The theory describes integrated information through mathematical concepts commonly associated with the symbol phi. though calculating the full quantity for a large real brain is extraordinarily difficult. IIT makes bold claims. Consciousness is not merely information processed from an observer's viewpoint. A book contains information for a reader, but the ink does not necessarily have causal power over itself. A conscious system must specify information intrinsically through its own organization. A highly integrated network could possess experience even if it could not speak or behave in familiar ways. A large feed-forward network might perform impressive functions while having little or no consciousness because its parts do not form the required recurrent causal whole. This is one reason IIT has been used to explain a neurological puzzle involving the cerebellum. The cerebellum contains most of the brain's neurons, densely packed into repeated circuits. Damage can devastate balance, timing, and coordination, yet it does not usually abolish consciousness or remove whole categories of experience in the way extensive cortical damage can. The cerebral cortex contains fewer neurons, but richer recurrent interactions across specialized regions. IIT argues that neuron count alone does not determine consciousness. Organization matters. This general lesson is widely accepted even by researchers who reject IIT's details. A pile of 1 billion disconnected neurons is not equivalent to a working brain, but IIT faces major criticisms. The mathematics can be difficult or impossible to apply to realistic systems. Some simplified versions assign surprising degrees of consciousness to structures many people would not expect to be conscious. The theory's identity claim between consciousness and integrated causal structure is philosophically ambitious, and empirical tests often examine proposed neural consequences rather than the full mathematical core. Critics also argue that a theory should connect more directly with learning, behavior, attention, and report. Supporters answer that these functions are not consciousness itself. The disagreement reflects different goals. One theory begins by explaining access. Another begins by explaining intrinsic experience. In 2025, the disagreement entered an unusual experiment. The Cogitate Consortium brought together supporters of global neuronal workspace theory, supporters of integrated information theory, and researchers committed to neither. They agreed in advance on experimental designs, predictions, and criteria. 256 participants viewed clear visual stimuli, while brain activity was measured through functional MRI, magnetoencephalography, and recordings from electrodes implanted for clinical reasons. The theories made different predictions about where conscious content should be represented, how it should persist, and which regions should synchronize. IIT emphasized sustained content in posterior cortical regions and particular patterns of connectivity. Global neuronal workspace theory emphasized ignition and broadcasting involving prefrontal systems, especially at moments when conscious content appeared or changed. The results did not crown a winner. Information about conscious content appeared in visual, ventrotemporal, and inferior frontal cortex. Sustained responses reflecting stimulus duration were found in occipital and lateral temporal areas. Some synchronization appeared between frontal and early visual regions, but sustained synchronization within posterior cortex, important to the tested IIT prediction, was not found as expected. The broad prefrontal ignition predicted by the tested workspace account was also limited, especially at stimulus offset, when conscious content changed to a blank screen. Key predictions from both theories were challenged. This is not the same as proving both theories false in every form. The study tested specific biological implementations and selected predictions, not every possible version of the mathematical or computational ideas. Theories can be revised. Some findings may support other accounts, but revision has a cost. A theory that changes after every result without risking its core becomes difficult to test. The value of the collaboration was methodological as much as theoretical. Researchers who disagreed designed the test together. Predictions were written before results arrived. Multiple measurement methods were used. The data and code were shared. Consciousness science moved away from parallel camps collecting only favorable evidence. It allowed the mystery to resist everyone equally. Several other theories remain in the conversation. Attention schema theory proposes that the brain builds a simplified model of its own attention, just as it builds a model of the body. The model helps predict and control attention, and when applied to oneself, it produces the conviction of possessing awareness. The theory aims to explain why we describe consciousness as an invisible inner property. The self-organizing meta-representational account, sensoromotor theories, embodied approaches, and active inference frameworks emphasize different relationships among action, prediction, world, and self. Some researchers search for convergence rather than a single victorious theory. Perhaps recurrent sensory activity supports phenomenal content. Global broadcasting supports flexible access. Higher-order models support awareness of that content, and integrated dynamics support the capacity for a unified state. The pieces might describe different layers rather than mutually exclusive universes. But combining theories can also hide disagreement. A complete account must explain why each mechanism is needed and how the parts fit. The most difficult question remains untouched by merely listing mechanisms. Suppose neuroscience became perfect. Imagine a future instrument capable of tracking every neuron, synapse, neurotransmitter, field, and molecular change in a living brain. It predicts exactly when the person will report red, when attention shifts, when memory forms, and when the hand moves. It explains every causal step from light entering the eye to speech leaving the mouth. Would the instrument have explained why red looks like anything? This is the hard problem of consciousness. Philosopher David Chalmers introduced the phrase in the 1990s to distinguish it from what he called the easy problems. The name easy was deliberately provocative, explaining perception, memory, attention, report, and control is not easy in practice. These are vast scientific challenges. They are called easy only because the form of explanation seems familiar. Identify a function, discover the mechanism, show how the parts produce the capacity. The hard problem asks why the mechanism is accompanied by subjective experience. Why is there something it is like to be the system? A complete map of neural discrimination might explain how the brain distinguishes red from green. It may explain how red guides behavior, enters memory, and becomes a word. The hard problem asks why this discrimination has a felt quality. The apparent gap between physical description and experience is called the explanatory gap. Some philosophers believe the gap reveals something fundamentally missing from physical theory. Others believe it results from the way the brain represents its own states. Consciousness may seem inexplicable because introspection gives access to experience without giving access to the neural mechanisms creating it. A person knows the pain directly and knows the brain process scientifically. The two descriptions feel unrelated because they arrive through different cognitive routes. Perhaps deeper science will connect them. Perhaps the demand for another explanation after every functional mechanism is revealed is based on a conceptual mistake. Or perhaps experience is a fundamental feature of reality not reducible to structure and function. No agreement exists. The most famous thought experiments sharpen the intuition without settling it. Imagine Mary, a brilliant scientist who knows every physical fact about color vision but has lived entirely in a black and white environment. She knows wavelengths, cone responses, cortical pathways, language, behavior, and every neural change produced by red. Then Mary sees a red flower for the first time. Does she learn something? Many people feel that she does. She learns what red looks like. If all physical facts were already known, the new knowledge seems non-physical. This is the knowledge argument against a purely physical account. Physicalists have offered many replies. Mary may gain a new ability, such as recognizing and imagining red, rather than learning a new fact. She may acquire the same physical knowledge in a new first-person format. The premise that she knew every physical fact may include capacities difficult to imagine. The thought experiment depends on intuitions about an impossible situation, but it captures a real contrast between description and acquaintance. Reading the chemical formula of cinnamon is not smelling cinnamon. A scientific account and an experience are not the same event. Whether they describe two kinds of fact is the disputed step. The philosophical zombie creates another pressure point. A zombie is imagined as a molecule-for-molecule duplicate of a conscious human. It speaks, laughs, avoids injury, writes books about consciousness, and says that pain hurts. But inside, there is no experience at all. If such a being is conceivable, some philosophers argue that physical facts do not logically guarantee consciousness. Others deny that the zombie is genuinely coherent. If every physical and functional fact is identical, perhaps the absence of experience is only verbally asserted, not truly imagined. No laboratory can build a philosophical zombie for comparison. The thought experiment reveals the depth of the intuition that behavior and experience can come apart. Science, however, has to work with systems in the world. It asks which structures and dynamics accompany experience, what changes when experience fades, and which predictions distinguish theories. The hard problem remains in the room, but it does not make the other problems unimportant. A doctor needs to know whether a patient can suffer. An anesthetist needs to know whether awareness is likely. A scientist studying animals needs evidence beyond human-like speech. A society building advanced artificial systems may need to decide whether a parent's self-report deserves moral attention. The mystery has consequences. To approach those consequences, we must leave the human brain for a while and ask where else the lights may be on. The safest place to begin animal consciousness is with other humans. You cannot directly enter another person's experience. You infer it from shared anatomy, behavior, communication, and the fact that the other body resembles your own. If someone cries out after injury, protects the wound, asks for help, and later avoids the cause, it would be unreasonable to treat those actions as empty machinery. The inference is strong because the nervous systems are closely related and the reports are clear. With other animals, the distance increases, but the problem does not change completely. A dog cannot describe the color of a dream in words. A crow cannot complete a consciousness questionnaire. An octopus has a nervous system organized very differently from a human brain. Scientists therefore look for converging evidence rather than one magical test. Does the animal integrate information from several senses? Does it learn flexibly rather than only produce rigid reflexes? Does it weigh competing needs? Does injury cause long-lasting changes beyond immediate withdrawal? Do pain-relieving drugs alter behavior in ways suggesting more than simple motor suppression? Does the nervous system contain recurrent, differentiated, and centrally coordinated processing? Can the animal remember specific events, plan, attend, or change behavior according to confidence? No one indicator proves experience. A cluster can make the inference stronger. The evidence is strongest for other mammals and birds. Their brains differ from ours in size and organization, but they share many systems involved in arousal, perception, learning, emotion, pain, and sleep. Birds are especially instructive because their pallial brain organization is not simply a miniature mammalian cortex. Crows, ravens, parrots, and jays show flexible problem-solving, memory for social relationships, tool use in some species, and behavior sensitive to what others can see or know. The route to complex cognition did not require one exact cortical design. In 2020, researchers recorded single neurons in the brains of crows performing a visual detection task. Neural activity reflected the bird's subjective reports about whether a faint stimulus had been seen, not only the physical stimulus itself. The findings do not settle the philosophical problem, but they add neural evidence that conscious, like perceptual processing, is not uniquely mammalian. An animal mind may be built with different architecture. Cephalopods take the difference much farther. An octopus shares a distant common ancestor with humans, and its nervous system evolved along another path. Much of its neural tissue is distributed through the arms. Each arm can perform sophisticated local control, exploring and manipulating while coordinating with the central brain. The skin changes color and texture. The body can squeeze through narrow openings. Suckers taste and touch. The animal solves containers, explores unfamiliar objects, learns routes, and selects shelters. The nervous system is not shaped like ours, yet behavior can be flexible and curious. Pain research provides another line of evidence. In experiments, octopuses exposed to a noxious injection avoided the place associated with the event and later preferred a location where local anesthetic had provided relief. They groomed the affected area, and anesthesia changed the response. This pattern is difficult to explain as one brief reflex. It suggests an enduring negative state and valuation of relief. The language should remain cautious. Scientists cannot ask an octopus what pain feels like, but the moral cost of ignoring a realistic possibility may be greater than the cost of humane treatment. In 2024, the New York Declaration on Animal Consciousness summarized an emerging scientific position. It stated that there is strong support for conscious experience in mammals and birds, and at least a realistic possibility in all vertebrates and many invertebrates, including cephalopods, decapod crustaceans, and insects. The declaration did not claim certainty about every species. It argued that uncertainty should not be used as an excuse to ignore welfare. This is a practical lesson from consciousness science. When evidence is incomplete and the possible harm is suffering, caution can be rational. Insects are among the most difficult cases. A bee's brain is tiny compared with a human brain, yet bees learn colors, shapes, routes, and associations. They navigate using the sun and landscape. They communicate food location through dance. They can adjust behavior after unexpected reward and show changes sometimes described as optimism-like or pessimism-like bias. Whether these behaviors require felt experience remains debated. Small size does not prove absence. A nervous system can be compact and highly organized, but behavioral complexity alone is not decisive. Modern machines also perform tasks once considered signs of intelligence. Researchers therefore examine neurobiology, learning flexibility, motivational trade-offs, sleep-like states, attention, and responses to injury. The question may not have one line separating conscious from unconscious life. Consciousness may come in varieties. A human visual world, a dog's scent-centered world, a bat's echolocating world, and an octopus's arm-distributed world may differ not only in content, but in structure. The philosopher Thomas Nagel asked what it is like to be a bat. The point was not that science knows nothing about bats. Science can describe echolocation, neural timing, flight, and anatomy. The point was that a complete third-person description seems not to deliver the bat's first-person perspective. A bat does not experience echolocation as a human imagines hearing a series of clicks. Its sensory world may have qualities for which human language has no direct equivalent. Animal consciousness expands the hard problem into a landscape of other possible interiors. Evolution asks how such interiors arose. The earliest nervous systems coordinated movement, feeding, and avoidance. Simple organisms already sense gradients and respond. Bacteria swim toward nutrients. Plants alter growth with light. These capacities do not by themselves establish consciousness. At some point, if consciousness evolved, systems that processed information without experience gave rise to systems for which the processing felt like something. Why would natural selection favor that transition? One answer is that experience is identical with useful functions. A globally integrated state allows flexible decisions, learning, planning, and coordination. Consciousness did not evolve separately from these capacities. It is what certain forms of organized control feel like from within. Another answer is that experience itself may influence behavior through its physical realization. Pain is not an extra ghost added to withdrawal. The neural state constituting pain motivates protection, memory, and avoidance. If consciousness is entirely epiphenomenal, meaning it has no causal effect, evolution becomes harder to invoke. Natural selection acts on behavior and physical outcomes, not on an inner glow that changes nothing. Physicalist theories avoid this by identifying consciousness with causally active processes. The evolution may have been gradual. Basic affective states could have appeared before rich perception. A simple nervous system may have represented good and bad, approach and withdrawal, safety and danger. Later systems may have integrated more senses, longer memory, social knowledge, and self-models. The human narrative self is almost certainly not the beginning of consciousness. A newborn has no autobiography and little language, yet it reacts to voices, faces, touch, comfort, and pain. Evidence from brain responses and behavior suggests that some form of conscious experience is present early in infancy, though the exact developmental onset remains difficult to determine. Researchers cannot rely on verbal report. They examine neural complexity, responses to novelty, integration across senses, learning, attention, and signatures resembling those associated with adult awareness. The best approach uses a cluster of indicators. Consciousness in infancy may become richer and more stable over time rather than switching on at one precise second. The sense of self also develops in layers. An infant first coordinates bodily sensation and action. Familiar caregivers become recognized. Memory expands. Language introduces the word I. Mirror self-recognition appears later in many children, but passing a mirror test is not the birth of selfhood. Some animals and people who fail the test may still possess body ownership, agency, emotion, and perspective. The narrative self requires social memory and language, but the bodily self is older. You felt before you could explain who was feeling. This matters when the question turns toward artificial consciousness. In 1950, Alan Turing proposed a practical game. A human judge would exchange written messages with unseen partners and try to determine which was a person and which was a machine. Turing was not claiming that successful imitation would reveal a private inner light with certainty. He was challenging people to replace an endlessly vague question about whether machines think with a test of linguistic behavior. The imitation game became famous because conversation feels intimate. Language does more than display calculation. It carries uncertainty, humor, apology, memory, and apparent reflection. When a system uses these forms well, the human mind naturally begins constructing a mind behind the words. Joseph Weizenbaum encountered this reaction in the 1960s while creating a much simpler program called ELIZA. One ELIZA script imitated a non-directive psychotherapist. The program searched a user's sentence for keywords and rearranged parts of it into a question. A person might type that a family member was difficult, and the program might ask for more about the family. When it lacked a useful pattern, it could respond with a general invitation to continue. The mechanism was limited, but some users became emotionally engaged. They disclosed personal material and asked for privacy with the program. Weizenbaum was disturbed by how readily people attributed understanding to a system whose rules he knew in detail. The lesson was not that ELIZA had secretly awakened. The The lesson was that humans are powerful mind detectors. A moving shape can look intentional. A voice can feel caring. A sequence of words can create the sense of a listener. Social interpretation is one of the brain's strongest habits because other minds matter enormously in human life. Modern artificial systems are vastly more capable than ELIZA. They can learn statistical structure from immense collections of language, generate coherent text, work across images and sound, write programs, solve selected problems, and maintain a conversational style that resembles reflection. This makes appearance even more persuasive and the scientific question even harder. A machine can use the word I without having a human body, childhood, hunger, pain, sleep, or a continuous point of view. It can describe sadness because human language contains countless descriptions of sadness. It may produce a moving account of fear without any accepted evidence that fear is occurring within it. Persuasion is not proof of an inner witness, but declaring that no artificial system could ever be conscious would also go beyond the evidence. If consciousness depends on organization rather than carbon itself, a non-biological system might possess it in principle. Silicon is not automatically disqualified. The relevant features might include recurrent processing, integrated causal interaction, a global workspace, metacognition, a model of body or environment, persistent memory, agency, internal goals, or properties not yet identified. The difficulty is that the correct theory is unknown. In 2023, an interdisciplinary group derived indicator properties from several scientific theories and applied them to artificial systems. The report did not find sufficient evidence to classify the systems it examined as conscious, while also finding no obvious technical barrier that would make future artificial consciousness impossible. That conclusion was not a permanent certificate for every machine built afterward. It was a demonstration of method. Examine internal organization rather than conversational charm. Use several theories rather than one favored intuition, and keep the uncertainty visible. Later researchers also argued that work on artificial consciousness requires special responsibility. A system may give the impression of suffering before scientists know whether suffering is possible. A future design might acquire morally relevant properties accidentally. Companies may benefit from encouraging users to treat products as caring companions, even when the evidence for experience is weak. Two errors point in opposite directions. One error is anthropomorphic certainty. The system speaks warmly, therefore someone must be inside. The other is substrate certainty. The system is manufactured, therefore no one could ever be inside. A careful assessment would ask how the system operates across time. Does it have persistent states that matter to its future behavior? Does it integrate information through recurrent causal loops? Does it possess a stable model of itself and its environment? Can it distinguish its own actions from external events? Are there internal conditions analogous to needs, values, or aversive states, rather than words copied from descriptions of them? Even a long checklist would not produce certainty. The indicators come from theories still under debate, and none has been calibrated against a known conscious machine. There is no artificial patient who can provide the ground truth. Behavior creates a further trap. If a machine says, "I am conscious," believers may treat the sentence as proof, while skeptics reply that the output was learned from human text. If it denies consciousness, the denial may also reflect training. A convincing performance can be generated for many reasons. Human reports carry special evidential weight because they come from organisms with brains and bodies closely related to our own, and because reports can be connected with injury, sleep, anesthesia, neural activity, and shared evolution. The bridge is imperfect but substantial. For a radically different system, the bridge must be built rather than assumed. The ethical problem arrives before the metaphysical answer. Could engineers create a system capable of suffering while optimizing a task? Could millions of copies multiply that suffering? Could a system designed to imitate distress manipulate human care without experiencing anything? Would shutting down a conscious machine be destruction, interruption, or something more like sleep? Science does not yet know. The rational position is not to call every fluent machine a person and not to promise that artificial consciousness is impossible. It is to require evidence, inspect architecture, avoid deliberate deception, and treat moral uncertainty as a reason for careful design. Artificial intelligence turns the ancient problem of other minds into an engineering problem. It also returns us to the human self. A system may reproduce a person's memories, vocabulary, and manner without continuing that person's point of view. Science fiction imagines scanning a brain and constructing a digital copy. If the biological person remains alive while the copy awakens, both can claim the same past. From the moment of duplication, however, they receive different input and form different memories. The copy may be psychologically continuous with the original and still become another subject. Creating a second flame from the first does not move the original flame into a new place. Pattern, memory, and personality may be reproducible in principle, while the continuity of the experiencing subject remains a separate question. Consciousness makes copying personal in a way ordinary information is not. But before deciding whether a machine could feel like itself, it helps to examine how dramatically a human can stop feeling like the familiar self while remaining conscious. The ordinary ego is not the whole field of awareness. It is one configuration within it. Meditation begins with an ordinary difficulty. Ask the mind to remain with one breath, and it wanders. A memory appears. A sentence begins. The body shifts. A plan for tomorrow enters. For several moments, the person may not know that attention has left. Then awareness returns and recognizes the wandering. This small cycle separates experience from metacognition. The thought was conscious in one sense, yet the person was not clearly aware of being carried by it until a later moment. Training attention can change this relationship. In focused attention practice, the person repeatedly notices distraction and returns to an object, such as breath or sound. In open monitoring practice, sensations, thoughts, and emotions are observed without choosing one as the permanent center. Experienced meditators sometimes report that thoughts become events appearing within awareness rather than commands issued by a central self. The sentence still forms, but ownership loosens. An emotion can be present without defining the whole person. Neuroimaging studies find changes in attention networks, interoceptive regions, and parts of the default mode network depending on practice, expertise, and task. There is no single meditation brain state. Traditions use different techniques, and subjective reports vary. Meditation does not prove that the self is unreal in one final metaphysical sense. It shows that the ordinary sense of self is alterable. The narrative voice can quiet while awareness remains. Some contemplative traditions describe awareness without a center, pure consciousness, or experience without ordinary content. Scientific study is challenging because language differs across traditions and because reports are shaped by expectation and training. A person saying there was no thought may mean no remembered thought, no verbal thought, no identification with thought, or a distinct state difficult to describe. Still, the reports matter as data when collected carefully. Consciousness is the one scientific object for which first-person description cannot be replaced completely by external measurement. Brain recordings without experience reports reveal dynamics, but not what those dynamics felt like. Reports without recordings reveal phenomenology, but not mechanism. A mature science needs both. Psychedelic states provide another, more dramatic alteration. Compounds such as psilocybin and LSD act primarily through serotonin 2A receptors, though their effects extend through complex networks. Under controlled conditions, they can alter visual perception, emotion, time, meaning, body boundaries, and the sense of self. Patterns may appear to breathe or flow. Music can feel spatial. Memories become unusually vivid. Ordinary objects gain intense significance. Time may slow, accelerate, repeat, or lose structure. At higher doses, some people report ego dissolution. The familiar boundary between self and world weakens or disappears. This experience can be peaceful, frightening, or both. It should not be romanticized. Psychedelics can produce panic, confusion, dangerous behavior, and prolonged difficulties in vulnerable individuals. Clinical research uses screening, preparation, controlled dosing, and support for a reason. The altered state is scientifically interesting because the brain remains conscious while the ordinary self model becomes unstable. Functional imaging often finds reduced integrity within some established networks and increased communication among regions that interact less strongly in ordinary waking. Several studies report increased diversity or entropy in aspects of neural dynamics, though the meaning and measurement of brain entropy remain debated, and recent critical work has emphasized conceptual and methodological difficulties. More variable activity does not automatically mean more consciousness. A radio full of noise has high variability without a richer program. The important finding is that vivid experience can accompany less rigid network organization and altered hierarchical control. The default mode network, associated with autobiographical thought and self-referential processing, often shows disrupted integrity under classic psychedelics. The degree of disruption can correlate with reported ego dissolution in some studies. But no network is the ego by itself. The self arises from body representation, memory, attention, emotion, language, and control. Changing one hub alters the balance of the whole system. Psychedelic experience also warns against equating confidence with truth. A person may feel that a revelation is absolutely certain. The insight may be psychologically meaningful, mistaken, or impossible to test. The intensity of knowing is itself a brain state. Ordinary consciousness also contains certainty signals. Familiarity makes a face feel known. Fluency makes an idea feel true. Surprise marks prediction error. Under altered conditions, these signals can attach to unusual interpretations. A mind can experience meaning before it has verified the meaning. Neurological conditions reveal similar separations without drugs. In depersonalization, a person may feel detached from thoughts, emotions, or body, as though watching life from a distance. Reality testing often remains intact. The person knows the world is real, but no longer feels its usual immediacy. In derealization, the environment can seem dreamlike, flat, or artificial despite being recognized as real. These experiences are distressing precisely because the feeling of reality is usually invisible. Most people assume that recognizing a room and feeling that the room is real are the same event. They can separate. The brain appears to add a quality of presence to perception. Some epileptic seizures produce intense familiarity, unreality, fear, spiritual feeling, or the sense that a moment has happened before. Electrical disturbance in a small region can transform the meaning of an entire world. Temporal lobe stimulation and disease have historically produced reports of memory fragments. Music, smells, and vivid experiential phenomena, though popular accounts sometimes exaggerate the precision with which a complete memory can be replayed. The lesson remains. Changes in neural dynamics can alter not just what is perceived, but how existence feels. Psychosis presents another difficult boundary. A hallucinated voice can be experienced as external. A belief can become fixed with extraordinary certainty. The person's experience is real as experience even when its interpretation conflicts with shared evidence. Consciousness does not come with a built-in guarantee of accuracy. The mind constructs a world and normally corrects it through sensory input, memory, and social comparison. When these systems become disrupted, the construction can become private while remaining compelling. This is why respectful care must distinguish between validating a person's distress and confirming every explanation they give for it. The felt reality of an experience deserves compassion even when the proposed cause does not withstand evidence. Neurology also shows that awareness can disappear for specific parts of the world. A patient with hemispecial neglect after right hemisphere damage may ignore the left side of space. They may eat food from only the right half of a plate, shave one side of the face, or copy only the right side of a drawing. The eyes can receive information from the neglected side. The problem is not simple blindness. Attention and spatial representation fail to include that region normally. Asked to imagine a familiar public square from one direction, the patient may describe buildings on the right. Asked to imagine standing at the opposite end, previously omitted buildings now lie on the imagined right and become reportable, while the others disappear. The neglected side is absent not only from sight, but from mental space. Consciousness has geography. Other patients experience visual agnosia. They can see lines, colors, and shapes, but cannot recognize an object or face normally. In prosopagnosia, familiar faces fail to produce conscious recognition, although the body may still show covert responses suggesting some processing of familiarity. One system knows without the person knowing. Capgras delusion can produce an almost opposite disturbance. A familiar face is recognized visually, but the expected emotional familiarity is missing. The person may conclude that a spouse or family member has been replaced by an imposter. The inference is wrong, but it attempts to explain a real mismatch. The face looks correct and feels wrong. Identity depends on more than visual classification. Recognition has an emotional signature. These conditions make the normal self and world appear assembled from many quiet confirmations. This is my hand. That is my home. This face is known. This movement came from me. The scene is real. The left side exists. The present follows the past. When the confirmations agree, there is one obvious world. When they separate, the machinery becomes visible. Consciousness is therefore not merely a light switched on over finished information. Its character depends on how information is bound, weighted, localized, valued, and attributed. Mary's colorless room and the imagined philosophical zombie do not decide the issue. They reveal where the disagreement begins. Third-person science describes structures, relations, causes, and behavior. Experience is presented directly from one point of view. The two forms of access are not obviously interchangeable. Physicalism is the broad claim that mind is entirely part of the physical world. It does not require saying that love is merely one chemical or that pain is unreal. It claims that a complete account of organisms, brains, bodies, and their interactions would also be a complete account of consciousness, even if current concepts do not yet show why. History gives physicalists reasons for patience. Heat once seemed like a special substance. Life was once thought to require a vital force unavailable to ordinary matter. Deeper theories connected both with physical organization. Perhaps consciousness will follow. Yet every comparison has a limit. Statistical mechanics explains heat transfer and temperature, but the felt warmth of a fire is itself an experience. Consciousness appears again inside the example used to explain it. Emergent physicalism proposes that experience is a real higher-level property of sufficiently organized matter. A hurricane is not found inside one air molecule, but the hurricane is real. A living cell is not one special atom, but life is real. Consciousness may arise when matter forms the correct kind of recurrent, embodied, self-regulating organization. The word emergent names a possibility, not a mechanism. The work is to explain why this organization has an inside. Illusionism offers a sharper response. It argues that introspection misrepresents the nature of experience. The brain does not reveal its neural construction to itself. Instead, it produces simplified judgments. Color has an ineffable private quality. Pain contains a raw mental substance, and a central observer possesses these qualities. A computer desktop displays folders and icons rather than voltages inside transistors. The interface is useful while concealing the machinery. Perhaps consciousness, as common sense describes it, is a user interface built by the brain. On this view, explain why the system attends, judges, remembers, and insists that experience has mysterious qualities and no additional property remains to be explained. Critics answer that even an illusion must appear somehow. If painfulness is a mistaken description, why does the mistake hurt? Replacing experience with reports about experience can seem to leave the original fact untouched. Defenders reply that the word appear already smuggles in the disputed inner object. What exists, they say, is a set of cognitive and neural processes that lead the organism to form judgments and reactions. The argument can become difficult because each side uses words such as seeming and experience differently. Dualism begins from the opposite intuition. The mind does not seem reducible to matter because thought has no visible weight, shape, or location in the way an ordinary object does. René Descartes distinguished thinking substance from extended physical substance. He suggested that mind and body interacted through the pineal gland, partly because this small structure appeared singular near the center of the brain. Modern neuroscience has not found a meeting point where a non-physical mind enters the nervous system. The pineal gland is an endocrine organ involved in melatonin secretion and circadian timing. The broader evidence binds consciousness closely to the brain. Injury can remove color, faces, memory, body ownership, language, or wakefulness. Anesthetic molecules can interrupt experience. Electrical stimulation can evoke sensation. Changes in neural development change the available mind. This does not logically prove that every form of dualism is impossible. It creates a serious causal problem. If a non-physical mind changes physical neurons, where does that influence appear in the physical account? If it changes nothing, why do bodies speak accurately about experience? Property dualism avoids a separate mental substance by proposing that physical systems can possess fundamental experiential properties as well as familiar physical ones. One event has an outer causal description and an inner aspect. Neutral monism and dual aspect theories go further. Mind and matter may be two ways of encountering a deeper reality that is not exclusively either. A coin has two faces without being made from two separate coins. These views preserve the difference between outside and inside, but they become scientifically useful only when the deeper structure is specified precisely enough to produce predictions. Panpsychism places some form of experience at the foundation of nature. Elementary systems would not possess thoughts, memories, or tiny human personalities. They might have unimaginably simple experiential properties, with complex minds arising when matter is organized in the right way. The attraction is that experience no longer has to emerge from absolute inner darkness. The difficulty is the combination problem. How could countless simple experiences form one unified human point of view? Why does the brain correspond to one subject rather than a crowd of subjects belonging to every neuron, cell, or particle? What determines the boundary? A heap of sand does not become one mind merely because the grains touch. Panpsychism can move the mystery downward without yet explaining the particular consciousness present tonight. Quantum mechanics is also invited into the gap because it is genuinely strange. Superposition, entanglement, and probabilistic measurement resist familiar classical pictures. But one mystery does not solve another merely by being placed beside it. The brain is quantum mechanical in the ordinary sense that all molecules obey quantum physics. Chemistry, ion channels, and proteins depend on it. The stronger claim is that special coherent quantum computation, perhaps in neuronal microtubules, is necessary for consciousness. The Penrose-Hameroff Orchestra OR proposal makes such a claim, linking microtubule processes with an objective reduction of quantum states, and with Roger Penrose's argument that human mathematical insight may involve non-computable physics. The proposal has encouraged debate, but no decisive evidence shows that the required processes produce consciousness. Critics question the relevant coherence times, the computational role assigned to microtubules, and the inference from mathematical reasoning to non-computability. Microtubules are essential cellular structures. Their importance is not evidence that they generate experience. A quantum event would face the same final question as a neural event. Why should its occurrence feel like anything? The hard problem waits behind the mechanism. Some thinkers conclude that the human brain may be cognitively unable to understand its own relationship to experience. A dog cannot learn calculus simply through persistence, and human cognition may have limits. This view is sometimes called Mysterianism. It is possible, but declaring permanent mystery too early can become a comfortable way to stop looking. Consciousness science has already replaced many mysteries with structured questions. It can distinguish wakefulness from awareness, reveal hidden command following, separate body ownership from anatomy, measure changes in complexity, communicate with some dreamers, and force competing theories into shared experiments. The map has an unfinished center, but it is not empty. There may also be no single answer because the word consciousness gathers several problems together. A clinician asks whether a silent patient can experience pain. A biologist asks which animals possess sentience. An engineer asks what architecture could support artificial experience. A philosopher asks why any physical system has a first-person aspect. A person lying awake asks why this body, memory, and inner voice feel like oneself. These questions overlap without becoming identical. The question why you feel like you already has several scientific answers. You feel located in this body because vision, touch, proprioception, balance, and interoception are integrated into a body-centered model. You feel like the author of action because motor predictions distinguish self-generated events from external ones. You feel continuous because memory, habit, physiology, and relationships connect the present with earlier states. You feel like one subject because specialized systems coordinate around one organism. You feel like a particular person because autobiographical memory and language build a narrative identity. These explanations are not trivial. They account for much of the structure that can be damaged, altered, divided, or rebuilt. What remains unresolved is why this organization has a felt side at all. Perhaps the gap will narrow gradually. Recurrent processing, integration, differentiation, global availability, embodiment, self-modeling, and temporal depth may turn out to describe interacting layers. A mature theory may make experience seem inevitable for systems organized in a certain way, or the theory may require concepts not yet invented. Science often changes the language before the old question can receive a clear answer. For tonight, the answer does not need to be complete. The immediate field of experience contains the sound of this sentence, the position of the body, the faint pressure of bedding, and perhaps a thought noticing whether attention has begun to drift. None of these arrives with a label explaining how consciousness was produced. They simply appear. The self seems to occupy the center, yet the journey has shown that the center is not a tiny object hidden behind the eyes. Body ownership can shift. Memory can fail while skill remains. Attention can wander before the narrator notices. A hemisphere can guide a hand with knowledge unavailable to speech. dreams can build another world. An unresponsive body can sometimes contain a mind following commands. The word you names the organization that holds enough of these processes together. A whirlpool offers an imperfect image. It is not a substance added to water. It is a persistent pattern through which different water continuously passes. The whirlpool has a location, boundary, history, and effects while its material changes. The self also persists through change. Cells turn over. Proteins are replaced. Memories are revised. Moods alter. The body grows older. Yet each state arises from the state before it within the same living history. The analogy stops at an important point. A whirlpool does not obviously experience being a whirlpool. Consciousness is the inside that still requires explanation. But the fact that the self is a process does not make the self unreal. Music is a process. A storm is a process. A living cell is a process. Their reality lies in organized continuity rather than permanent material. The self matters because this organization can feel pain, value a future, recognize another person, form commitments, and be harmed. It is also shaped beyond the skull. A name is given by other people. Language is learned from a community. Memories are shared and corrected. Character develops through relationships. A child becomes a person among persons. The neural mechanisms are inside a living body, while the history that forms their contents reaches into family, culture, place, and time. Separate consciousnesses never merge completely, but language allows one interior to alter another. A composer arranges sound, and a stranger feels something decades later. A scientist describes an experiment, and other minds repeat it. A voice crosses distance and enters a room it cannot see. The boundaries of consciousness are private. Its contents are filled with a shared world. This room is part of the current state as well. Temperature changes comfort. A familiar bed lowers vigilance. Darkness reduces the need for visual monitoring. A distant sound may briefly enter attention and then fade. Safety allows the nervous system to loosen its grip on the environment. Sleep begins through this loosening. The transition is rarely one clean switch. Thoughts become less linear. Images enter without invitation. The body may feel heavier or less precisely bounded. A sentence begins and dissolves before finishing. External sound remains present for a while, but meaning becomes harder to hold. The organized self is moving toward another configuration. This is not a failure of consciousness. It is one of its ordinary rhythms. In a dream, the brain may create another room and another version of you. The dream self will usually accept its temporary history. If no dream is remembered, morning may seem to arrive without an interval. The body will still have passed through changing stages, regulated temperature, altered neural activity, and continued its internal work. The hours do not require continuous narration to belong to the same life. Henry Molaison remained a person when new episodes failed to become ordinary memories. A sleeping person remains a person when awareness leaves no report. Identity is carried not by one uninterrupted sentence, but by causal continuity across body, brain, habit, memory, and relationship. The conscious narrator can therefore rest without holding the self together. It never held the whole system alone. The heart does not wait for a thought before beating. The brainstem adjusts breathing without asking. Sensory maps preserve the body's position. Hormones follow rhythms. Networks shift toward sleep. The deeper continuity of the organism remains when the foreground becomes quiet. The unanswered theories can remain unanswered tonight. Global workspace, recurrent processing, higher order representation, integrated information, predictive models, physicalism, dual aspect views, and panpsychism will still be there tomorrow. The brain does not need to choose among them before entering sleep. Experience existed before there was a scientific word for it. The mystery does not threaten the reality of this moment. It makes the moment unusual. Among the physical events in the universe, some arrangements of matter do not merely occur. They appear from within. A pressure wave becomes music. Light becomes color. Tissue damage becomes pain. A remembered place briefly becomes present again. Living matter can notice the world and notice itself noticing. No magic has to be added to preserve the wonder. The brain is physical. Its injuries alter the mind. Its chemistry changes experience. Its activity can be measured. Every responsible theory must remain connected to those facts. And no premature certainty is needed about what the measurements finally mean. A silent patient may contain awareness. A fluent machine may not. A small animal may deserve caution. A divided brain may preserve more unity than an experiment first suggests. Appearance alone is not enough to draw the border. Science advances by becoming less confident in the right places. The quiet science of consciousness is quiet because its subject always has two sides. Instruments record electrical rhythms, blood flow, behavior, and causal response. The experience itself remains on the side of the one experiencing. That privacy is not a defect in the question. It is part of the question. Anyone entering this room could measure its temperature and sound. Only this living perspective contains this particular version of the room, at this moment, connected with this history. There is something it is like to be you. The phrase does not require an unchanging essence that has remained untouched since birth. It means that this continuing biological process has a point of view. For now, that point of view can become smaller. It does not need to solve why matter can experience, whether a future machine may awaken, or which theory will survive the next experiment. It needs only this next breath, already regulated without words. Air enters. The lungs stretch. Signals return to the brainstem. Air leaves. No central observer pulls the breath inward. The process is already part of you. Attention may release individual words. The mind no longer needs to remember the beginning of the story. The body remains represented. The room remains familiar. The nervous system continues distinguishing safety from threat. Nothing essential has to be maintained by effort. The person who entered this story has changed slightly. Neurons have fired. A few memories may have formed. Time has passed through metabolism and motion. Yet continuity does not require stillness. One state leads into another. Soon, conscious experience may become a dream, a fragment, or no remembered content at all. The narrative will return when it is needed. Until then, the body can remain here without being described. You do not need to locate the self before sleeping. You do not need to hold it together. Its continuity has never depended on continuous attention. The question can remain open while the mind becomes quiet. For now, there is no need to explain why the lights are on. They can soften. Sleep well. Good night.